So what are we doing today? What's up?
Well, we're gonna look at this room. This is our recording studio at Temple City here. And yeah, I just wanna get into like some of the good groovy stuff that we've got going on here.
So when we were first setting this space up, what were the first things that came into mind, like foundational pieces for?
First thing is like, which direction do I set up for mixing? Because I do a lot of mixing and like sound design. You wanna have a symmetrical place where you're listening. So the first thing I did is came in and like, okay, do I want to do this way? But then you've got like brick and windows and a different, like a, regular wall. So this way just was like the most symmetrical of the room. But then the second thing was, getting some acoustic treatment in. These are all from GIK Acoustics, but they will also sort of like, you can send your dimensions to them and they'll give you a breakdown of like what you can do at different like price points, which is really nice.
Dude, tell me about this desk.
It's made by a company called Sondas, and they're more of a custom like furniture manufacturer for like studios. They'll do custom built-ins and stuff, but they came out with this desk a couple years ago, and for what I need in this room, it just like fit my needs perfectly. Having like the low profile so I can see my screen for editing when I'm doing video editing, or if I have, some kind of film that I want to like put up here and then have my DAW down here. It's just nice and ergonomic. And I mean, this is huge for scoring, being able to just pull out a keyboard and start like plinking around instantly, I edit videos too in this room, and having, a space for the screen that's really important for the workflow, but also keeping it out of the way of the speakers is really important. So this desk like keeps a low profile so that I can hear what I need to hear, but also get the information on the screen. And then obviously the screen behind, but this is more just for watching cartoons and putting on movies while I'm working. Another fun thing too, I kind of did custom, you can barely see it, but my Mac Studio is actually just like mounted right under the desk there. Yeah.
I actually didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's just super clean. All the cabling for everything runs through these like conduits.
Tell me about the speakers.
So I'm obsessed with speakers, and I'm constantly learning about speakers. These speakers are relatively new. They're Atom Audio's A8H, and the H stands for horizontal because they're obviously meant to be placed horizontally. But they are just fantastic. Best monitors I've had, and I've had them probably almost a year now. And they're just kind of the centerpiece of like the work that we're doing here as far as audio goes. Monitoring, you want to have an equilateral, like when you're monitoring your music or your whatever you're making, you want to have an equilateral triangle, so the distance between the speakers and the listening position is the same. So when we first got in here, I got on my hands and knees and like measured out with tape where everything is. There's tons of schools of thought, but I have mine a little bit like so that the speaker center is sort of hitting behind my head, so that when the music passes by, it's hitting both ears at the same time, so there's no delay on either side, but also so that I feel like I'm in the music because it's kind of hitting a point back here, rather than if you're too far in, then it kind of hits in front of your face, which feels like you're watching the music rather than you're like in it, if that makes sense.
All right, let's talk about this guitar rack you got going over here.
Yeah, so this is kind of a mixture of my guitars and friends' guitars, but I've got some fun things here. I don't know if this is a lesser known brand. This is actually Garrett, who works here. It's his guitar, but this brand Reverend is a really cool guitar manufacturer, and this guitar has a really unique sound, obviously a unique look too, which I love about it. But yeah, this is just a classic Jag too. This is a Coulter, who plays in my band, his guitar, and it's also just a totally different sound, but like chunky and just a classic, I won't go through all these, but this guitar I actually feel like has a great story. I got it in a trade for a fuzz pedal. Like the fuzz pedal was worth more than the guitar, so the guy gave me a guitar and cash to like make it. And so this is a really cheap, like Mexican made Strat, but I've had it for so long and it just feels like home, I guess, to play it. It's funny just that it's a cheap guitar that I just absolutely love. The only other one I think I would mention, I mean, my bass is cool, but this guitar I think is really unique as well. Just has a cool look to it. It's called a Tuxedo, and it's made by a company called Eastwood. They rebought this name Airline that was like an older like Sears catalog, kind of manufacturer, but they bought the rights and started making them with better parts and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a old classic made new, which I think is super cool. Back here is the coffee situation, because that's how I make everything. I have to start with coffee first.
Talk to me about why you got an acoustic piano in the studio here.
I like to have instruments in the studio that you can touch and make sound instantly, you know, acoustic guitars, drums, having a piano, things that give you instant feedback, because sometimes creativity comes quick and you're not ready with the computer, you know, you want to be able to make something happen. So yeah, having that's great. I've recorded that many times. This is kind of a new thing for me, but I've always wanted to record drums. I also have wanted to learn how to play drums. And so having a kit here has been great for the last few. I've only had it a few weeks, but I'm already like, I play almost every day now. I feel like the sound that I'm getting too, the recording I'm getting in here is very good for like how little there's going on. There's only 3 mics right now. There's a kick drum, snare drum, and this overhead. One of the joys of living in downtown Salt Lake and working in downtown Salt Lake, you get to hear motorcycles and fast cars all the time.
Speaking of outdoor sounds, what do you typically do to kind of tamper for that?
I think the best way for us to handle noise in this room is to use the baffles. They call them a PIB, portable isolation booth. We'll take them out and make sort of a wall. They like unhinge, and then you can, you know, move them around and change the depth. But depending on what the instrument is, if it's a voice, then we'll do them tall and make a room kind of around them. And if it's an acoustic guitar, then I'll fold them in half, because usually it'll be sitting. And that's usually the best way, and what I'll do is sort of position them this way so that the person's behind them, and then that way any street noise or anything is getting tamed that way. Whereas if it's the opposite, which I have tried in the past in here, it actually has the opposite effect. It seems to bring it out even more. So, but that can be a sound too. There's even recordings I've done here that I left in street noise or things like that, because it can add character.
So when you're recording, let's say, acoustic instruments aside from drums, how are you typically miking those up, and what kind of environments are you setting up for those?
Sure. So when I'm miking things up, I try to start from a place of like, what am I trying to accomplish? Because whatever the project is can ask for a totally different microphone setup. So for example, a couple weeks back, I had a kid come in to do some like acoustic guitar, just like his voice and acoustic. And I set up this little stereo mic setup here. So this goes on a stand, right? And then you can position the microphone so that they're in an XY. And that's kind of similar to like you're hearing like 2 ears essentially, right? And so I'll do something like that for a more modern kind of like immersive sort of sound. But then another example, I've got kind of this little mic drawer over here. This is just a cheap ribbon mic that I use for acoustic guitar as well, or any kind of acoustic instrument. It's got a figure-8 pattern, so it kind of goes like this, and so the sides are null. So you can kind of use it to get open sounds, but it's a little more vintage than like, say, those ones that we just showed.
Tell me about this funky instrument you got here. This has got to be one of my faves.
Yeah, it's epic. It's my first like hardware synth that's like outside of the computer that I've had, and it's just super inspiring. It sounds pretty tasty. It comes through with some, pretty serious juice, but it's very like versatile, and it has tons of cool sounds on it. Like this is a sound I just created the other day. Just a classic kind of. But yeah, it's super intuitive actually. I know there's a lot going on here, but once you dive into it, it comes pretty clear, and you can get sounds out of it really easily. As I said with the acoustic instruments, I love things that you can just touch and they just make sound. So
pull up your chair, dude. Come on, give us a little
taste.
Yeah. Like, what are all the things we got here? I know this isn't like a Take 5 tutorial, but
that's okay. Here, what we can do is I'll start from like a bass, so if you initialize the sound, it just gives you a wave, right? And then you can start tweaking stuff pretty quickly. It comes
Nice.
pretty quick, and there's a lot of fun stuff. I'll show you. Let me show you one more sound. This is my most favorite sound on the whole thing. Let's see. This one right here. Yeah, it's a beast.
Hell yeah, dude.
I love it. It's a great synth. That's probably one of my favorite pieces in here.
Oh yeah. What other like fun projects have you worked on in here though, like from a personal standpoint?
I just
outside of
finished mixing a record for a local artist named Caleb Darger, and that's something I'm really excited about. It's my first full-length album, and I had a lot of fun working on it. It's kind of like folk, kind of country, which is also kind of a new thing for me. So that's been a really cool project. So we do some Foley in here. We shot a commercial for Mill Creek Coffee, a local coffee shop, and we did some like beans going into a basket and some like coffee pouring and just some fun sounds. So that's something we can do in here too. I usually set the baffles up for that as well and kind of get into it. But that one's particularly fun because really you don't know what sound will work and you have to really experiment, which is the fun of it. So
And yeah, I've also noticed this wonderfully comfortable chair that you have here.
yeah, that's the newest add to the studio actually. And what you'll notice is you can sit in it.
Oh.
And when you're sitting in it, there's something that feels good. That's all I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Does it look good?
No.
I gotta go.
Get out of here. I'm out. All right. I think we got a few options. Yeah, we got a few in there.